nor Peshash to 20 a.m. Atri woke up with a jolt, as if something heavy had pressed down on his chest. He grabbed his phone with trembling hands and muttered in irritation of the same thing every single night. I'm sick of this. He switched on the night lamp and pulled out a cigarette. The moment he took the first drag, a strange calm washed over him. But his mind kept circling the same disturbing thought. What were these strange nightmares? Why were they happening again and again? Tonight's dream, however, was worse than all the previous ones. Atri found himself in a place he had never seen before, dark, silent, and eerily unfamiliar. Not quite Earth, not quite some ghostly realm, something in between. Suddenly he saw a few creatures, not entirely human, not entirely animal, dragging a terrified man across the ground. Atri followed silently. What he saw next froze his blood. They tied the man's legs with rope, hung him from a thick tree branch, and lit a fire beneath his body. The flames grew higher, the man's screams pierced the night, and the monstrous creatures howled in demonic celebration. Atri woke up gasping for breath. Morning came with Anu's frustrated voice scolding him awake. Their marriage had long lost the softness it once had, but Atri barely paid attention today. The real shock came at the office. Everyone was strangely quiet. When his senior pre-Yotasha said, Sudamoy died last night, burned to death, Atri felt the ground slipping beneath his feet. The man from his dream, was it the same person? Was this just coincidence? Or was some dark, unknown force trying to show him something a few days later? Anu insisted on a trip. Atri, already exhausted and mentally shaken, agreed. They booked a cottage far from Shillong. Quiet, secluded, peaceful. Maybe a change of air would help. The cottage was made of wood and bamboo, with soft white sheets, a fireplace, and the fresh smell of rain-soaked mountain wind. They were both exhausted. Sleep claimed them the moment their heads touched the pillow. No one knows how long they slept. Suddenly, thud. A sharp sound outside shattered the silence. Atri's eyes sprang open. His heartbeat rose. For a brief moment he wondered, did he really leave the nightmares behind? Or had they followed him all the way here, right to the door of this lonely cottage?
Norpishak. Part 2, Atri sat up on the bed, heart racing. The sound outside, it wasn't something that scared him, but it filled him with an unsettling curiosity. Should he go out and check? Or should he stay inside this lonely cottage in the middle of nowhere? What if it was some wild animal? Beside him, Anu slept like the dead. Not even the slightest noise reached her ears. Yet something inside him kept pulling him toward the door. A strange urge he could neither explain nor resist. Quietly, he slid off the bed, his feet pressed against the carpeted wooden floor as he walked toward the door. He slowly unhooked the latch and pushed the door open just a fraction. A cold gust of wind rushed in, sending a shiver through every vein in his body. Outside, the world looked unreal, as if wrapped in some ancient, primal darkness. A darkness from a time before life existed. A stillness untouched by man or beast. Atri felt himself sinking into that haunting silence when suddenly, THUD. Another sharp noise snapped him back. He stepped 2 feet outside the door and froze. Some creature was holding something in its mouth. He squinted, but the darkness swallowed all details. Then, with a single leap, the animal landed right beneath Artry's cottage. Even in darkness, there is always a faint, eerie glow. And in that ghostly half-light, Artry finally saw it. A large, fearsome dog, its jaw clenched around a huge wild rat. Its eyes met Artry's, filled with something cold, vicious, and otherworldly. And then, in an instant, it vanished into the dark. Artry stood motionless for several seconds. Then he quietly shut the door, sat on the bed, and lit a cigarette. Mountain dogs are big, he thought. Bigger than those in the plains, but the one he saw, that wasn't normal. That wasn't natural. Finishing the cigarette, he slipped back under the warm covers. Morning arrived with the phone's alarm. Sunlight washed away most of the night's terror from his mind. After breakfast, they left to explore the area. Later that evening, while returning, they met Mr. Peter and his wife Romina. A warm, unexpected encounter in a foreign land. When Peter learned they were from Kolkata, he eagerly invited them to his bungalow. Artry and Anu, surprised but delighted, happily agreed. The bungalow was massive, an old British-era structure surrounded by tall trees and manicured gardens. But the moment Artry stepped inside, something inside him tightened, a strange pressure, a quiet suffocation. Peter noticed nothing and continued up the stairs. Artry followed reluctantly. The upper hall was filled with antique furniture, wooden chairs, heavy tables, and portraits that seemed to watch you. Romina brought hot coffee and snacks. Conversations flowed freely. Time slipped by unnoticed. When Artry suddenly checked the time, it was already late. Anu, we should go. It's really late now, he said politely. Mr. Peter, thank you. It was wonderful. We'll come again. Peter smiled warmly. You're always welcome, my friends. Artry and Anu stepped out into the garden. The night was calm. Too calm. And then Artry's eyes caught something, that creature. The same one from last night, standing at the edge of the garden, staring directly at him with those cursed eyes. Anu turned to see what he was looking at, and gasped in fright. Instantly, the creature darted into the bushes and disappeared. Artry held Anu's hand, calming her. It's okay, just a dog. Let's go. But as they walked away, Artry felt it. A rising tension inside him. An invisible fear crawling beneath his skin. Something had followed them here. Something they couldn't see, but could certainly feel. Part 3. After a while, they entered the cottage. Peter's evening feast had already filled their stomachs, so neither of them felt like eating anything else. They lay down on the bed, and within minutes Anu drifted into deep sleep. But Artry couldn't sleep. Not because he wasn't tired, but because of that strange, terrifying creature. Artry knew even if that animal looked like a dog, it was anything but normal. He told Anu it was just a dog so she wouldn't panic, but deep inside he felt something different. Something truly unsettling. Thinking and overthinking, sleep finally overtook him. Morning, Artry woke up to Anu's voice. Morning light slipped through the bamboo gaps of the wall, as if the cottage hadn't seen sunlight for ages. They planned to have breakfast outside today. After getting fresh, the two headed out. They roamed around the whole day. By the time they returned, afternoon had already turned into evening. Anu barely managed to step inside the cottage before collapsing on the bed. Artry asked her to rest and stepped out for a walk. The mountain evening had its own magic, the struggle between fading light and rising darkness. Walking through that atmosphere, Artry didn't realize when he reached Peter's bungalow again. The strange silence in Peter's bungalow. He climbed onto the veranda. The door was shut. Maybe they're inside. Let me knock. The moment he knocked, KTTKK, the door opened by itself. A strange cold breeze brushed past him, making his heart skip a beat. Maybe they're upstairs. He stepped inside and went up to the dining area. But empty, silent, not a single sound. Peter, Peter. He called out several times. Nothing, no reply. Giving up, he turned to leave. But then, Something hit his nose, a sharp putrid smell, so rotten as if an old decaying corpse had been dug up. The smell was coming from the left side of the house. Curiosity beat fear. Autry covered his face with a handkerchief and walked toward it. All the room doors were shut, except one slightly ajar. He pushed it face to face with horror. The moment the room opened, Autry almost gagged. The floor was soaked in dark, sticky blood. Knives lay scattered here and there, and in the middle, that creature. That dog. Its stomach had been brutally sliced open. Intestines spilled across the floor, but its face strangely untouched, and its stone-like eyes staring right at him. Autry's heartbeat thundered in his chest. His breath turned icy. Then he noticed something in the corner. His blood froze. A human body, cut in half, hanging upside down from a thick rope tied to the ceiling. Savage, merciless. As he stepped closer, Autry realized it was a little girl. Her tiny body sliced apart, tears rolled down his face. Fear was gripping him like claws. Running back to the cottage, Autry ran as fast as he could back to the cottage. The mountain darkness felt thicker, heavier than ever. He rushed inside and saw Anu fixing her hair in front of the mirror. His heart twisted painfully. Startled, Anu asked, "What happened? Why are you running like this? Where did you go?" Autry didn't tell her anything. He forced a smile. "Nothing. Thought you were sleeping. I was just jogging outside." Anu didn't look convinced, but she didn't ask further. Night of restless thoughts, Autry didn't eat dinner. Anu let him sleep without questions. But sleep didn't come. He smoked a cigarette, and every swirl of smoke reminded him of that horrific room, the dead creature, the mutilated girl, and the unseen monster lurking somewhere in the dark. But the biggest question, who was that girl, and who killed the creature? Peter, Romina, or someone far more dangerous? Thinking about it, he finally fell asleep late at night. Dream, or something else? Suddenly, Autry found himself in Peter's house again. The dining table was set with food. The lighting was dim, the atmosphere heavy. He dipped a spoon into a bowl of noodles, and something came up. A severed finger. On that finger, Anu's ring. The one he gifted her on their anniversary. So, Anu? Terrified, Autry jolted awake. His whole body drenched in sweat, his head throbbing. That was a dream? Yes, just a dream. Relief washed over him for a second. Then his breath caught in his throat, because Anu was gone. Not in the bed, not in the room. Nowhere inside the cottage. The Fiend final episode. Just as he was thinking this, a sound drew his gaze to the mobile phone. A message had arrived. As he picked up the phone and opened the message, Autry's entire body seemed to go numb. The message read, "Autry, you were sleeping, so I didn't wake you. I went out for a stroll. I suddenly bumped into Peter and Romina there. They insisted I have afternoon coffee at their place." The moment he saw the message, Autry's headache vanished instantly. When he entered Peter's bungalow, the evening darkness seemed to have descended even more heavily, wrapped in a blanket of fog. An eerie silence reigned everywhere. Even the leaves on the trees seemed to be standing still. "And you, ... double quote," a muffled cry escaped Autry's throat. He ran through the bungalow door and straight up the stairs. No. Anu wasn't there. Where did Anu go? Autry wondered. Suddenly, he remembered that room on the lower veranda. As he ran across the veranda, His foot struck something in the darkness. Rubbing it between two fingers, he realized it wasn't just some sticky substance ... It was fresh red blood flowing out of the room. Terror paralyzed his entire nervous system. Sitting up slightly, he saw that what he had tripped over was not an object ... It was Anu's body. She was lying unconscious on the veranda, her hands tied. Archery was just about to lift Anu from the floor when a ferocious roar assaulted his ears. With terrified eyes, he pushed the door open slightly, and a cold shiver ran down his spine instantly ... Looking in that direction, he saw that dog. With a mouth full of savagery, it was tearing at Peter's windpipe ... Peter wasn't fully dead yet. Blood was gushing out of his mouth in a futile attempt to scream, "Oh God." What a hellish scene. An indescribable, demonic carnage. Suddenly, that dog-like creature with its blood-soaked mouth glanced once at Atri. Then, with another inhuman, ferocious roar, it clamped down on Peter's throat again. His hands dropped to the floor. His battle for life was over. This hellish scene had exceeded the limits of Atri's endurance. Stepping out of the door into the twilight, he saw two shadowy figures standing in front of the main gate. Looking closely, he realized ... A little girl was standing there, and beside her stood that dog. A shudder ran through Atri's entire body in an instant. There was a look of pure, unblemished affection in the girl's eyes. She was looking at Anu with a gaze full of love. A moment later, the two figures seemed to dissolve into the fog like smoke. Archie didn't delay another moment and kept walking. Soon, he reached the cottage. He laid Anu on the bed and sprinkled water on her face, and she regained consciousness. Archie felt a sense of relief seeing Anu regain consciousness. As soon as Anu sat up, Archie asked her, "Tell me, what happened at Peter's house?" Anu said, "I was walking on the road after leaving the cottage. Suddenly, I saw a little girl standing quietly alone near a tree by the roadside. She was very sweet. So I went to her and asked her name, where her home was ... The girl didn't answer. She just looked at me and smiled. I felt a lot of affection for her, so I caressed her and kissed her cheek and forehead. Then I said, 'Don't stay here alone like this. Go home.' The girl smiled at me again, and then disappeared somewhere into the jungle. Just then, Peter and Romina were coming down the road. They requested me to go to their house, so I couldn't say no. That's why I messaged you." As soon as I took a sip, my head started spinning ... I don't remember anything after that. However, I heard some faint words. That's all I could hear. Then I woke up and found myself here. Atri understood everything. Without saying anything else to Anu, he said, "You take a little rest now." Anu was perhaps about to ask something, but Atri stopped her. When Anu fell asleep on the bed, Atri thought, he could never tell Anu what he had seen today, nor did he want to. One thing became crystal clear to Atri now. The half-eaten body of the child he had seen before belonged to that little girl. And that dog was actually the spirit of the dead dog. So, Peter and Romina were their real killers. Thinking this, a deep hatred for those monsters in human form weighed heavy on his heart. That little girl and that dog, acting as guardians, had saved his Anu's life. Thinking through all the events in detail, a quote from Shakespeare's play Hamlet, read long ago, came to his mind. "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio / than are dreamt of in your philosophy," meaning, there are events in this world that even philosophy is unable to explain.